Oh man, this is...
Your new set.
I have a blackboard wall.
If only you had good enough handwriting to use it.
You're ruining the moment. All right. It's a work in progress, but I'm gonna have so much fun with this. Okay then, let's get to it. Hello, I'm the Game Professor, and welcome to the new location of Games as Lit 101. So now that I'm done fumbling about, let's get down to what the Stanley Parable is actually talking about. My mistake was coming into this game with an expectation and interpreting the game entirely based on that. You all know how much of a sucker I am for a game with a strong thematic message, but the Stanley Parable isn't trying to make any one point. It's not about giving answers, it's about exploring a concept. And I probably never would have figured that out without my own personal little navvy here.
Hey, listen, I was trying to guide you here from the start. You figured it out, you just took forever to do it.
Yeah, touché. The point is that the Stanley Parable isn't taking sides. It's not saying that the player's freedom is more important than the creator's vision, nor is it saying the opposite. There's a sliding scale between those two options, and the Stanley Parable, with all its different endings and all of its different routes, is showing us various points along that line. Ultimately, both are important. The creator of the game is the artist behind it. Their vision is what's going to dictate how the game turns out, how it communicates its message, and the finished work always says something about the person or people who created it. That's always how art has worked, and adding interactivity doesn't change that. But the person experiencing the work does matter, especially in a medium like video games, where the player takes an active role in the experience. To exclude the player entirely from the work is to ignore the strengths and uniqueness of this medium. We see this in all facets of the Stanley Parable. We've seen destructive control complexes portrayed in both Stanley and the narrator, symbolically speaking, the player and the game's creator, respectively. But the game has also portrayed both of them as important, as central to the experience. When either of them is ignored, their relationship, and thus, symbolically speaking, the work, the final product, and our experience of it, suffers for it. There's actually one ending in particular that rather perfectly expresses this fact. The player is about to be crushed before the narrator is replaced by a female narrator, and the player is taken to a museum of sorts that displays cut content, concept art, models, and commentary on the game's development. This breaks the fourth wall pretty hard, of course, and when the player is finished and leaves the museum, they're returned to the area before the giant trash compactor thing, and our new narrator says this.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free. Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen.
They both need one another. They both vie for control. They both want to do what they want to do, but without each other, they're lost, directionless, meaningless. And remember that this isn't just characters in a game. The entire point of the Stanley Parable is a commentary on game design and interactive narrative design. Stanley symbolizes us, the player, and the narrator symbolizes the developer, the creator of the game that we're playing. The Stanley Parable is about balance, about how either side of this equation, when taken to an extreme, can be problematic, and how different things can be accomplished in a video game by emphasizing either side. It's not about trying to say that there's any one right way to take on this relationship between a game creator and player, because yeah, there is no one right way. It's a give-and-take relationship between the two, not a black and white choice where there's one clear right option. So the Stanley Parable, for all of its snark and the jokes and all the silly, dry humor, is actually quite a thorough exploration of the tension between a game's creator and the player. It was created, after all, as a commentary on player choice, and it accomplished that goal pretty well. So, yeah, that's the purpose of this game. How's that, my invisible, irritating friend?
Better. Almost makes me feel like being nicer to you despite all you put me through.
Really?
Almost.
Well, I'll take what I can get. Well, this has certainly been an educational experience for me, and hopefully it has been for you as well. And for that matter, hopefully more enjoyable for you than it has been for me. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to hit that subscribe button down there and check the description for links to Games as Literature on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And speaking of Patreon, I'm actually coming up on a funding goal that will have me analyze one of the worst video games ever made as decided by a vote from you viewers. So if you'd like to take part in choosing which horrible game I'm going to suffer through and analyze, there's a link in the description to a survey where you can choose from a few games. Do keep in mind, of course, that I do literary analyses. I'm going to be talking about the story, so just keep that in mind when you're choosing a game. I'm not going to be yelling about glitches or anything, I'll be talking about the narrative. Due to the holidays, there's not going to be another episode of Games as Lit 101 this upcoming Monday, but following that, the show will finally be back on its weekly schedule, starting with an episode with maybe a controversial opinion on the use of Let's Plays. And next literary analysis, I am finally going to make good on my first Patreon-requested analysis by taking a look at the classic PlayStation RPG, The Legend of Dragoon. So, until next week, class dismissed.